And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast, presented by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com. Excuse me. You know the deal. You're downtown, maybe getting ready for a Bengals game, or, come joining us for the Holy Grail watch party, 3:30 next Saturday as the Bearcats take on the Knights of Gold. Make sure you stop by and visit our friends at the Holy Grail. They will get you taken care of. Great food, great drinks, and Cincy Light. Every Cincy Light purchased at the Holy Grail, an additional 50 cents will be donated to the Cincy Reigns organization. From what I have heard, they have written some pretty nice checks to Cincy Reigns, thanks to you going down to the Grail and getting your fill of Cincy Light. We will see everybody next Saturday, 3:30 kickoff. Bearcats taking on Central Florida. All right, David, let's get this show on the road. How you doing, buddy?
Good. I was there Saturday. I didn't see anybody.
You were there a little early. Your family was there.
A little early.
I saw your mom. I saw your aunt. I saw your uncle.
Nice.
I didn't see your dad, but
No, he was at the Bengals game.
They said that they were downtown for the festival. They had hotel rooms, and they were like, "We're going to the Holy Grail."
Yeah,
so they came down and joined us. Mom hung around for the start of the game for a little while and chatted it up with me and Pops, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out in the Bearcats' favor.
Well, hopefully, just me stepping foot in there didn't jinx them.
No, I think you're all right, Dave. I think I think they really just didn't do enough to win.
No,
unfortunately. We'll get to that in a second. As this segment right here, brought to you by Homefield Apparel. It's homecoming season. Did you see the teaser that's coming out tomorrow, Dave?
I did.
I am not a pullover fan of that variety. I like quarter zips.
Yep.
But I'm wondering. I've got some credit with Homefield that I have not used yet. I might have to snag that bad boy for me.
Speaking of credit, I feel like mine might have got lost in the mail from what we discussed.
No, actually, they just sent me something this week that there's a new. I have to send you an errand that I will send you after the show. But I'm trying to pull this bad boy up. That's all we have so far, Dave. But if it's got
a red collar, like a red striped collar.
Yeah, if it's got the angry Bearcat, the angry dunking Bearcat, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to want it.
I've seen that much so far, so.
Yeah, there it is on the screen. You can see on the sleeve, it's got the little Bearcat on there. That comes out tomorrow, I believe, at 10 a.m. So, you got platinum access, Jeremy. I probably should go in there and look at it, but I spent 3 hours on the phone with the Internal Revenue Service today, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to.
I thought those 80,000 new hires were only going after the rich people.
Oh, it's a whole. So when Kelly passed, we switched from like filing joint. I didn't file the business as like an S corp,
right?
But then when she passed, there wasn't any point in filing joint the way that we did before, so we switched everything over. Then when we switched everything over, it's become like a whole bunch of time on the phone talking. Nightmare. But I will say the lady I had today was delightful. She took care of the problem. That's always the goal, right? Like, did the problem get fixed? Yes, today the problem got fixed. So go Internal Revenue Service, but 3 hours on the phone.
The only ring endorsement they will ever get.
Right. And that's just I've dealt with them a bunch. This is the one time that I had a positive experience. So kudos to her. But I haven't had a chance to go in and look at them. But anyhow, those come out in the morning. So make sure you jump all over that. Use promo code BCJ24, get 20% off. do some other shopping while you're there. I made sure to put this one on today since we talked about it last week, Dave. The old Great Midwest 1992 Conference Championship shirt. Love it. It's one of my favorites. So work that into rotation for today. Go visit our friends at Homefield Apparel. They have a lot of great UC gear, and add it to your wardrobe. You will be more than thrilled. It's almost hoodie season, Dave. I almost threw one on this morning to take Kelsey to school.
It was chilly this morning. This weekend, yeah. I think, should be delightful for that.
Oh, I might have a fire every night this weekend if I can. Because it's, we don't get a lot of weekend availability to do things like have a fire pit and consume copious amounts of Cincy Light. Mm-hmm. But that might be, and New Riff as well. But that might be this weekend. Homefieldapparel.com. Hopefully they don't get mad. I worked in like four ad reads here in this one. Homefieldapparel.com, code BCJ24. They will get you taken care of. You will be thrilled with whatever it is that you decide to purchase. Jeremy, Crypt Keeper, good to see you. Let's put a bow on Texas Tech, Dave. Aaron and I discussed it on the aftermath. You had the brunch on Sunday morning. We're a couple days removed now. For me, it's just we talked about a lot of what our expectations were for this team coming into the season. I think they're right about where kind of we expected. Now, I'm not going to pull what I think on the Pitt game. Like, they should have won the Pitt game. I don't think they should have won against Texas Tech. I think they
had opportunities to win, but it's not like, they're not one and the same. Like, could they have won? Yeah, if they had made some more plays in various aspects of the game, they absolutely could have won, but it's not like a should have type of situation to me.
Yeah, I think this team, actually, I would say offensively, they're maybe even better than I expected. And I expected them to be pretty good. Some of that is just Brendan Sorsby has been outstanding. And when your quarterback is outstanding, the offense takes a jump. I expected him to be good. He has been even a little better than I expected in terms of his decision-making and, the stuff that you don't see in practice, the gamer stuff, right? Like really standing in the pocket. They're not allowed to get hit in practice. So we have no idea coming into the season what he's going to look like. And if you looked at his numbers at Indiana, his biggest issues were against pressure. Now that makes me wonder, geez, how much pressure was Indiana getting? Because that dude will stand in to the absolute last second and get rocked and still deliver a good ball.
Well, the starter got benched and the coach got fired, so there's probably a lot going on.
Right. But offensively, I mean, there's not a whole lot to complain about. Protection has been pretty good. Maybe you could complain about if you look at like point of contact on rushing plays, maybe not as good as they were last year. To date in the running game, creating larger spaces for the backs to work with, but Kiner hasn't slowed him down. He's done a great job getting hit kind of in and around the line of scrimmage and still making plays.
It'll be interesting on that because I did see that today. There was some advanced stat tweet out there that showed like yards after contact graph along with yards before contact. And Corey was probably like top 5 in yards after contact and probably in the bottom, 15, 20% of yards before contact. And I wonder how much of that at the start of the year has been teams, I'm not going to say selling out to stop the run.
Loading up.
But just like Houston did it. I think Pitt did it. He still had a great game against Pitt. But like, how much of it is, we know what that guy is. We know they have a good running offensive line. We're still not quite sure about the receivers outside of Hendo and we don't really know about Sorsby. So let's maybe commit a little bit more to stopping the run. So I'm wondering, now that it's no secret that they can throw the ball around, at a very solid clip, how much more, I'm not going to say basic, but just like how much more run opportunities are there, because we're now more concerned about the pass game kind of in this back half of the year.
Yeah. I mean, you would be an idiot if you were a defensive coordinator coming into this season saying, oh, we'll just let Cincinnati run. Like, they were top 10 in the nation in rushing last year, and they returned their offensive line and their starting running back. Like, of course you're going to do whatever you can. And Miami, say what you will about certain aspects of that Miami team, they've got a good run defense. I didn't think their pass defense was all that spectacular, but you've had, like you said, Pitt, Miami, Houston, and Texas Tech were all pretty heavily focused on keeping Cincinnati's ground attack in check. But I mean, offensively, like I think you're nitpicking if you're finding things to complain about.
That's the thing, is like, regardless of how good a unit as a whole is playing, and even if they were 5-0, which, I mean, there's some hilarious, I mean, it's just a fun thing to me, but like K Ford Ratings does this thing where, like, what would your record be if you won every one score game that you lost, and like where would that put you? And they'd obviously be 5-0, and he had him in like the top 15 in the country. It obviously doesn't work that way, but
right.
Going into the season, what we thought about the offense, and the big question that I had, and I think you shared it, was, okay, we think we can run the ball. We think we're going to be better at quarterback. We think we're going to be better at wide receiver or pass catcher in general. Can we take that step to where, if a new defense with a new defensive coordinator and not a lot of new pieces isn't having a good game, like, can we get to 40? And that doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but last year we've talked about it enough. If they didn't get a lead, if they didn't get to a certain number, they had no shot.
Well, shit, Dave. Last year, remember we talked about they couldn't get a lead.
Right.
They couldn't play offense well enough to even get a lead.
So
let's just keep one.
Right. So kind of looking at it in totality, like, yes, is there a call here? Is there a situation here? I mean, we talked about the Corey getting more touches against Pitt, and maybe some of the, I talked about it Sunday morning, some of the, I'm not even going to call them issues, but just ways that things played out in the Texas Tech game. That's fine. But like, by and large, offensively, I don't know how you look at what they did and didn't do or weren't able to do last year and what they've done through 5 games and not just be overall, like, on some level of pleased to very pleased. I won't go as far as say ecstatic. I mean, I think ecstatic would mean you're 5-0 and you're going on all cylinders to a super high level. Yeah. But like what we thought could be, I think this is better than what we thought could be. And that obviously starts up front and then with the quarterback. Like, because if you can have a great quarterback, but if your line stinks, it doesn't matter. And so I think we've taken strides in pass protection, and I think it's, to a man, to a woman, like, you couldn't possibly have thought Brendan Sorsby was going to play overall this well through 5 games. Like, he's
right.
I think 65 and change percent passing, 12 touchdowns to 1 interception, plus what he's done on the ground. Like, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily fair to like pin it and lay it all at the feet of the defense, but you do kind of look at it and are like, if we can get just a few things figured out, like there is not going to be this massive jump with the defense. But when you play this many young guys, there are chances for guys to continually get better on some level of the spectrum. And I just think this is, it's going to be fun because we feel super confident in the offense. Like, these last 7 games are probably outside of maybe at Iowa State, at Kansas State, like I think those are going to be tough no matter what the offense does.
Yeah.
But like the other 5 games, let's shoot it out and let's see what happens. Maybe you get a couple stops. Maybe you force a couple turnovers. Because Texas Tech does have a good offense, and they got a lot of veteran guys on that offense. So, I mean, maybe the defense takes an incremental step and they force a couple turnovers or they get a couple stops, and that's the difference because your offense can go out and score 40.
To Texas Tech real quick. I'm not going to go as far as saying they're the best offense in the Big 12, but I think I am comfortable saying in terms of like matching up against UC, they were always going to be incredibly difficult for this particular UC defense to stop because they do both things so well. And they do have veteran quarterback, veteran running back, veteran number 1 receiver. We saw their tight ends were better. They had a better day than, I was anticipating. Of course, I didn't know the one guy was like 6'9", 250 or whatever he was.
All their tight ends are huge. Their one tight end's like 6'9". The one dude that used to be quarterback is 6'7".
Yeah. So I thought coming in that was going to just because Texas Tech, like you can't key on any one thing. Like I thought Cincinnati early keyed on the run and did a nice job early keeping a lid on the rushing attack. But then Texas Tech just said, okay, well then, if you're going to sell out in the box, we're just going to go right over top of you, hit our crossing routes, hit our check downs, and then we're going to, move the ball via the pass. And then
I don't know how many teams that are going to play the rest of the year that are going to want to play at tempo that can do both run and pass,
right?
To that level. I mean, I think Pitt is doing that. Tennessee is doing that. But yeah, UCF is going to.
What does Tennessee have to do with this?
No, I'm just saying,
did you just work at Tennessee?
There's not a lot of teams that play that tempo that run. Either you're like a running team or you're going to throw 50 times out of that. Like,
right.
Like UCF is second in the country in rushing, over 300 yards a game. They're not going to try to beat us throwing. They're going to go, you guys, we feel like you can't stop the run. Like, watch us run it up and down the field. West Virginia, TCU is going to throw it a ton. West Virginia, I'm not sure what they are offensively right now. Kansas State, Iowa State. Like Iowa State has a little bit more of that dynamic because of the quarterback, but they're not running tempo and spreading it out to where like, okay, you want to shut us down on the run, we'll let Baron Morton throw it 50 times. In the EC, which had been Texas Tech's distribution in the first 4 games, was they were 60-40 pass to run, which kind of confused me looking into them and saying, why aren't you giving the ball to Taj Brooks more? And then they flipped it in this game and he got over 30 carries and Morton only threw it 27 times. So, you're not going to see that type of style of offense the rest of the way. But you're still going to have to, like I said, fine-tune the margins. There's
got to be improvement.
You got to fine-tune the margins. Like, you've got to be able to get some, they got the one stop on the 4th down. They forced the one punt that ended up in the fumble, and then they forced the punt at the very end of the game. Other than that, they scored on every drive. There's got to be, whether it's turnovers or punts, like, get the ball back to your offense. I don't really care how you do it. Like,
they didn't force the punt that ended up in the fumble, Dave. UC punted and they fumbled.
Oh, that's true. Well, not even that.
So there was the 4th down, the turnover on downs, and there was the punt at the end, and they either scored a touchdown or a field goal every other time they touched the ball.
I think the part that, I've kind of not resigned myself to, but the part that kind of frustrated me, especially in the first half, was you were playing good enough to get them off the field, and then you just didn't get them off the field. They had the one play, they were at first or second and 20, and they run a screen and there's bad tackling or bad pursuit that gets them like 9. And then it's still 3rd and 11 or 12. And they ran practically the same play and got it to where it was 4th and short enough that gave them the opportunity to go for it. And they got it. So,
Right.
like, you weren't situationally, you were playing okay, but in those situations, you just weren't getting the stop or making the play that would have resulted in getting the ball back for the offense. Like, I feel like the first half there was a lot of missed opportunities to have a much better first half and potentially a much bigger margin. And then whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but the end of half, beginning of second half stuff, whether it's offense or defense, has been
Not good.
confounding.
Well,
I mean,
they
missing
got
a
all
field
the way
goal.
down into They got all the way down into a 42-yard field goal at the end of the first half. Then you miss it, and then come out of the second half and you fumble on the second damn play. Like,
just
the odds go from we have a pretty good chance to win to now we got to dig out of a hole that we shouldn't be digging out of. If you get that field goal and they weren't stopping you, like, that's one of the things that we do have to be careful when talking about this Texas Tech game. They might not play a defense. UCF's passing defense is that bad, but that Texas Tech defense is not good right now. They're not playing well. And Cincinnati played amazing offense against a bad defense. There's going to be more life on defense as you go through these last 7 games.
For sure.
And you screwed it up by not getting a field goal and then giving them the ball back on the second play when you could have been in a position to be up 10 or whatever, early in the third quarter.
Right. And those are the things. I mean, just say you make the field goal and you have a normal drive, even say you even go 3 and out and Fletch punts it to their 25 or something. You have like no idea what's going to happen next. But
they were going to score.
Well, probably. But I'm saying, like, you didn't get 3 points. You have the fumble, then you have the interception return. It's like there's 17 points in a game that you lost by 3 on the road.
Yeah.
That's where if you're going to take that step, like, I think they're better, but I shouldn't even say I think. It's pretty clear that they're an overall better team than last year. Like, defensive issues notwithstanding, like, the defense this year that's having troubles at times with various elements still doesn't look to me anywhere near what the defense looked last year.
At least the back half of last year. The first half of last year, the defense looked okay. And they completely crumbled.
So, I think it's a pretty fair assessment to say that this group has shown that they are different than last year. I mean, you had the Pitt loss, you bounced back. You had this game you get up early, they come back, they come all the way back, then they take a lead, a fairly big lead. You don't let it get to that next score that it would essentially totally put it out of reach. So there is a lot different element to this team. Now it's how do we clean up these issues? How do we make one of these kicks? How do we be better in pursuit on run defense? How do we convert more in the red zone, not, and whatever it might be, to take this from just better to like, okay, now this is actually like in a direction that we want to be going.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at least, and I think Mo had a segment on this today. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to listen because I was going into Kelsey's game, but they look like a Big 12 team this year. Last year, they did not. Last year, they looked like a team that was moving up a level. And I don't necessarily get that sense this year. They're not getting bullied like they did a year ago. And 7 games to go, like, maybe that narrative changes.
Well, sure.
But they did what they were absolutely supposed to do with Houston. You were better than Houston. You had them at home. You took care of them. You were clearly the better team. I'm not saying you're not supposed to shut anybody out in in college football in 2024. But you handled them. You were the better team. You played like the better team. You had control of the game, and you took care of business. You went into Texas Tech, which we anticipated would be a high-scoring game because both offenses are playing really well and both defenses not so much. And that's what we got. So you're more acclimated into what this league is
right. It's just, at this point on, to me, for teams that are kind of in UC's situation, it's really just a lot of it is going to come down to health. Like we already had it, I feel like not that we nailed it or anything, but like the things we've had concern about going into the year, we've been proven pretty darn accurate in the sense of like, we were already concerned about the defensive line and how they would hold up in conjunction with like who's going to get pressure on the quarterback. Well, we're seeing now, like I said it on Sunday morning, I always kind of laugh at the next man up sports trope. It's like at some point
you're out of men.
The next man up isn't just he's not good enough. Like maybe he will be in 6 games, in a year, in 2 years, but like you can't just keep saying next man up. Like they're down, and we'll see, after the bye week and guys like Burns and Rutherford, but like you're already down. Going into the year, you were down key pieces that you were looking to, like, if we're going to have a good year defensively, these guys that we brought in, or these guys coming back in Jalen Hunt's case, like they're going to need to be some of our top line guys. They weren't even there to start the year. And now we're having even more guys go down. So I don't know what I'm saying you as in just like the collective is like, what do you think the defense is going to look like? There were already concerns if they had a fully stocked unit. So it's going to be probably a lot of like, let's, bend but don't break. No cheap yards, no cheap touchdowns, So because you can't in a conference like this or any major conference, you can't stop the run with just like your 4th, 5th, 6th options on the defensive line.
Yeah, and that's to say, like, the reality is the linebackers have to play better. The safeties have to play better. Like,
I think it hurt him. I think it hurt him not having Jonathan Thompson Saturday.
Absolutely. That's a guy that, for whatever reason, is around the ball and makes plays. Not having a guy like that available, that's what. Maybe he makes one of those 3rd down stops, Dave.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, and changes the, maybe then all of a sudden they're up 21-3. And now you don't have to worry about Taj Brooks as much. And you can drop coverage and feel a little bit safer about it because you're okay giving up 5, 6, 7 yards at a time. And you do a better job not giving up 20, 25 here and there. So yeah, that some of that is valid. I think incrementally we've seen the safeties be good in the passing game. That star position, I think, needs, like we've talked about Minkins and Canteen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked a lot about Jaquan Sanks. And not like, that's not shocking. He's a freshman, but he's out there.
Right. I mean,
we haven't talked about Makai Miller really at all. Like the one guy, the star we talked about is Peak.
Yeah.
So you need better play there. You need better play from your linebackers. I think Jordan Young has been really good. They've been at times good at that number 2 corner spot. At times, they've struggled a little bit there.
Yeah.
I mean, would you say the most surprising thing on the defense is how much they're getting a lot of pressure? They're not getting home, and we've talked about that. Some of that is just a numbers game. When you get pressure, the point of pressure is you want the quarterback to react to the pressure, and then somebody comes and cleans them up. There's not enough guys coming after the quarterback for anybody to clean that up. They get out.
Right. It's like one guy gets the pressure, and if he doesn't get him down, then the quarterback's kind of open up to do. Right. And I didn't expect to get a ton of pressure against Tech just because you have to be so cognizant of Taj Brooks getting it in the RPO that you're not going to be like hair on fire to the quarterback and they run a ton of quick game. So committing extra guys, I just said, like, you're probably not going to get there in time, regardless of how many guys you have trying to get pressure. But no, I think they've done a better job in that. But you're right. I mean, to be as high up there in these pressure numbers, whether it's PFF or whatever, but to then only have I think it's 10 sacks through 5 games, which feels like we're on a pace for much better than last year. But yeah, if you're going to be around the quarterback that much, you probably need to get him on the ground more, or be forcing them into more turnovers.
Thanks, right?
Like you don't get there, but you rush a throw, or you hit the quarterback as he's throwing, or stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, there hasn't been enough of that, and like I said, some of that is a numbers game. That they're not winning enough. And that's going to be something that, hopefully over the bye week, they've now got 5 games on tape. Tyson Veit now kind of has a better feel for what he has, who he's got, where they excel, where they struggle. Hopefully coming out of the bye week into UCF, we see, a more refined approach because new coordinator, bunch of new players, bunch of freshmen. That's difficult in a Power 5 league. You can get away with that in the American some. You're not going to get away with it in a league that loves offense.
Right. Especially, there was not that I thought the effort against Houston was diminished by any stretch, but there's they got shut out again.
Yeah,
so
they're bad.
There's
they are bad.
There's a Grand Canyon size difference between Houston's offense and Texas Tech's offense.
Yes.
So,
one is really good and the other is really bad.
I think the rest of the year on, we're playing more than competent offenses.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Sure. We'll see what kind of health we can have, what kind of adjustments we can make, how we can, clean up some of the issues that, like I said, I don't think it's going to take some huge jump, but I don't think it necessarily needs to take some huge jump this season.
I will say this, and this, I'm not going to, there's, hopefully we'll hear more from Satterfield Tuesday. And I think it's the right thing to do. They didn't do a press conference this week. You weren't going to get injury updates because you don't it doesn't matter if guys are ready for Saturday.
No.
It matters what they look like next Tuesday when the team takes the field to start getting ready for UCF. And he'll obviously be coy with that. But, just from talking to people, it didn't sound like there was anything that came out of the Tech game. And obviously it's a concern if you're a fan watching it because guys were just dropping left and right.
Yeah. They were going to ask Keegan to come down and give him some fourth quarter carries if another guy got hurt or something.
But it didn't sound like anything catastrophic is the vibe that I've gotten. I'm guessing you'll probably see a guy or two be out a couple weeks or whatever, but it didn't sound like no scuttlebutt behind the scene of surgery or out for the year.
Right.
I didn't get any of that vibe. So hopefully that holds true as you go through this week and into next week.
Hopefully they get
some of these guys back.
Potentially get Tinsley back. Yeah.
I think that was kind of the aim that they were best case scenario was UCF. We'll see. Sometimes coaches do take that best case scenario and then
it does seem like, and I could easily have this wrong, but it always, I give the full, obviously the athlete has to put in the time and then also have just the genetics and everything for it to happen. But it always does seem that Aaron and his staff, we always we might hear this, and it just feels like, unless they're just being ultra cautious, that guys are coming back sooner than maybe originally thought of. Just over the years, not necessarily like this year, last year, anything, but
Yeah, I would say more. It feels hiccups. That drink of water did not go down well. I would say, oh, give me a minute. It feels
all right.
like they typically come back right on time.
Yeah.
Right on time.
Are you okay? Do we need to take a break?
I think I'm all right. I just tried to sneak in a drink and it did not it did not go well. It feels like we don't get that extra week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they typically stay right on schedule, where it feels like with the other football team downtown, they will pour one out for Chad. Yeah, that almost got me. That was, you almost lost me there. It feels like they do a better job of like, this is the timeline, and they end up pretty much right on the timeline.
Yeah.
Without having to go like an extra precautionary week before the guy comes back. So we'll see with DT. I know there's people in the program that think he might be the best pro prospect on the roster.
Could be.
So
I saw a mock draft this week that had Luke Kander in the first round.
Really?
Yeah. I think it mock drafts in the end of September, or you can use those to wipe yourself when you go to the potty. But
but as we've talked about, like, you've got two potential second day NFL draft picks at guard, and you've got a veteran center. That's going to be good for you. And I think John Williams has been, like, the progression he's made year over year the past 3 years has been remarkable.
Yeah.
I don't really recall.
I give him all credit. I mean, when Wilder went out and Buford was better than he was last year, and then when D'Artagnan went out, like, you slide him around, like, they've all stepped up their games and done more than enough. I mean, usually when you start shuffling, or you lose a guy here and then you're shuffling, I mean, teams are just like, we're just going to exploit this spot. We're going to pressure this guy over and over and over again, because eventually, he's not going to be able to handle it. And
I think
it doesn't seem
Pitt tried that
really
with
being the
Buford.
case.
Pitt tried that with Buford. It worked a little. Like, he didn't have a great game that day, but I mean, they were sending overload.
It worked in the second half, because especially in the fourth quarter, they were sending 6-7 guys on every play. And we don't need to relitigate that, what we did or didn't do, in my opinion, at the end of that game. But if you're not going to chip or help your guy out, and they're going to keep sending dudes, like,
choices have to be made. If there's 2 guys coming and you're the only guy there, it's really hard to block both of them.
You got to take the inside guy and hope the quarterback gets rid of the ball before the outside guy gets there.
Right. So yeah, I mean, when's the last time you were this confident in the offense?
2021.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that long ago, but
no, but I mean, even then, like, I think Dez had more limitations than Sorsby does.
Yeah, but like, they just had dudes, so it was like, and they were playing AAC teams, and it's like, you're going to cover? Alec Pierce, Tyler Scott, Trey Tucker, Lenny, Josh
Young, Lenny
Young, and Jerome Ford. Like, good luck.
Right. So I mean, I don't have a ton else. Just kind of looking at where things are at.
I think you look at the schedule, like, the teams you're playing at home. I'm not going to say you should. Those are 3 teams that you absolutely can beat if you play well. And then UCF, Colorado, like I said, I'm not gonna like give them no shot, but I think we might get into more of a Big 12 overview, but I think Iowa State and Kansas State are probably the two best teams right now. So if you got to go on the road to both of those in back-to-back weeks, I don't love our chances. So can you get one of Colorado and UCF, or can you win the 3 remaining home games? That gets you a bowl.
Yeah. And you can win at Arizona State, or you can win here against Arizona State. You can certainly beat West Virginia. You can certainly beat
better beat Arizona State. I do not think they're very good.
No, they're surprising because their record is better than many anticipated, but their metrics say still not
The Mississippi State win has no shine whatsoever.
They are bad.
The Texas State win is easily their best win. Wyoming stinks, Mississippi State stinks, Texas State's pretty good, so that's definitely their best win.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. But you said it on the brunch, like everybody, the bye week comes at a good time. This time, it genuinely feels like these guys probably need a week. They need a week.
Yeah.
We will dig deep into that matchup with UCF next week, and we do have a guest for next week, David.
Do we?
We do.
All right. Are we going to tell the people listening, or are we going to make them wait?
I'll tell them. Wes Miller will join us next Wednesday night. Is that good?
I think it's outstanding.
You don't like most interview segments, but I think Wes Miller you can find.
I like talking with Wes.
Yeah. And that'll be 10 days or whatever, 9 days before the not so secret scrimmage, the exhibition game with Ohio State.
Yeah, that's definitely not a secret scrimmage.
No. Get your tickets, $20.
I can't believe Wes didn't want to join us tonight. I mean, what could he possibly be doing that is more important or more enjoyable than joining this show tonight?
Trying to land a top 30 wing.
Have him join too.
Yeah, I'm sure that would go over great with NCAA rules. Just Wes and a recruit live from wherever they're having dinner tonight.
They have rules? I was unaware.
They have rules. That doesn't mean they're enforceable.
Exactly.
But there are rules. Wes will join us next week. Get a nice little overview. I'm angry I didn't get to make it to the tip-off dinner last night. It sounds like it was a great one with Roy Williams as the guest speaker. I was doing volleyball dad stuff and didn't get to head that way. But hopefully we will have a media availability with Wes here soon, and then, like I said, he will join us next Wednesday night to kind of get us ready for the season. So, and then we'll take a look at the Knights of Gold. I'm fascinated. We'll let's timestamp right now, and then we'll we don't normally talk a ton about the conference because we have other shows that focus on the Big 12 as a whole, but going into the bye week, generally everybody's played at least 2, I think. Most have played 3 conference games, 5 games, 6 games or 2 conference games, and then their 3rd conference game coming up this week. So we're going to take a look at the Big 12, but first, timestamp brought to you by Turtles Brew, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, 6% ABV. It's a bourbon-infused sweet tea. They have lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. Over 100 locations in and around Ohio, more than 50 in greater Cincinnati. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations, and go try it. Everybody that I've given a Turtles Brew has been, people are skeptical when you give them something that they've never had before or a concept that they've never had before. I give them a Turtles Brew. Their response is, that's really good. So join that group. get you some Turtles Brew, and you will enjoy it. I promise. Let's get into the Big 12, Dave. What a cluster that the Big 12 is. It's
fun.
It's super fun. Like,
maybe not to be a fan, because like every week you're like, I don't know if we'll win this week. We might. I don't know.
I have, we do the Big 12 Insiders weekly poll, and I joked this week because the Baxley that's joined us before is the one that runs it, and he always reminds us on Sundays, hey, get your ballots in. And I just said, is it okay if I put 1 through 16? I have no bleeping clue. Like, I have no idea no clue. I think Iowa State's 1. I think Houston's 16. From there, like, Dave and I are going to pull names out of a hat.
Yeah.
I might just make the names, put them in the hat, and every week reshuffle and start pulling them out, because it is a wild league. And this is what it looks like. Everybody, what does this league look like when Texas and Oklahoma are gone and there's no, big boy? What it looks like is chaos, and you have no clue from Saturday to Saturday what's going to happen next.
Oh yeah. Like, I think Iowa State and Kansas State, and then I think BYU's kind of like,
yeah, I had BYU 2 this week.
A little bit below them on the back end.
This week.
Over who?
Over Kansas. I had Iowa State 1, BYU 2, Kansas State.
Because they beat Kansas State.
I mean, they got to lead. It was the fear we've had with Kansas State all along, right? Like, if you get them behind, they are not.
The BYU had some very wild, some wild.
He scored 31 points in 6.5 minutes.
Some crazy stuff that happened in that game. I still think Kansas State is the better team, but I have no issue like putting like with that, whatever. But like, I think it's pretty easy to say Houston's at the bottom, and then probably
Arizona State,
Baylor, and Arizona State, and then that whole group from like 4 to whatever that is, 12.
Yeah.
Like, sure.
I mean, I think Utah's probably the best team.
Well,
but Cam Rising's never healthy.
If Cam Rising, like, I'm done with the whole like Cam Rising, will he play, won't he play thing. Like, if he doesn't play, like if he doesn't play, they're not that good. If he does play, they might be great. And Isaac Wilson isn't bad, but you're still talking about like a true freshman in these conference games on the road and stuff. So just, let me know when Cam Rising plays. But other than that, I mean, Kansas is probably the most disappointing team, wouldn't you say? If BYU is the most surprising, I would put Kansas as the most disappointing.
Kansas isn't far off right now the way that they've played. They're not far off from that bottom group.
Yeah, they would be somewhere down in that group.
11, 12, like
it's all the way to 16. They'd be in like the 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 range.
Yeah, I think I'd have them above Houston and Arizona State.
Oh, yeah, I would too, but Kansas or Baylor, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're just playing so bad, especially offensively. Like, I'm just stunned.
That offensive coordinator,
Jalen Daniels is playing as poorly as he is.
That offensive coordinator is making himself a lot of money, bro. Because they look like a completely different that was one of the most fun offenses in the NCAA to watch.
Oh yeah.
Now that's like stabbing yourself in the eye with like a fork.
You just have like, and that's the thing is when it's not comparable, because the thing that it's fun to watch, but it does hurt them in the sense of like they're not getting a second team in the playoff.
No.
Unless Iowa State goes undefeated, Kansas State wins out, but don't they play each other? So again, right?
Yeah, farm again.
So somebody's going to lose. It's either Kansas State's second loss or Iowa State's first. So it's just going to be
Cam
hard.
Rising miraculously comes back and plays.
But they lost Arizona, so
yeah. But I mean, if they have one loss, but
Right.
point being there, if they have one loss, it's without Cam Rising, and he comes back and plays the rest of the way.
But do you have confidence in any of these teams winning their next 7 games?
No.
Right.
Not even Iowa State. Like, they are offensively challenged at times.
That's what hurts. That does hurt the league. Is like it feels like there's no way they're getting a second team into the playoff. But it makes for such like I always try to not put the games on the 6-pack, just because I know, but we can still preview them. But like I think I have 3 on there this week because the week to week of it just makes for super interesting games. Like you have teams that are like Texas Tech, BYU, I think Iowa State, maybe one other team or 2-0. Like who had that group at like 2-0?
It's BYU, Colorado, Texas Tech are 2-0.
Yeah.
Iowa State, Arizona, and West Virginia are 1-0.
1-0. Okay, so it's just, but then you look at some of these games and it's like Oklahoma State just did not look good and lost badly to Kansas State. Now they play West Virginia, who has had their issues. Like somebody's losing that game. Like UCF, a week after being 15-point favorites and losing by 27, has to go to Florida. What's that going to be like?
Florida that they beat them 2 or 3 times in a row?
I do not know.
Count bowl games?
Oh, yeah, maybe for sure.
It's at least 2 of the last 3 or something that they've beaten them.
Yeah. Like Iowa State, Kansas. Or not Iowa State, Kansas, sorry. I'm looking at the helmet schedule here and I'm trying to Arizona State, Kansas. That's like whoever loses that game is probably like, okay, we're trying to fight off a tailspin here. And being put in a position to having to fight to keep the team together. It's wild. I mean, I love that, we're getting Texas Tech, Arizona at 11 o'clock Saturday night.
Yep.
For the true degenerates. But no, it's super fun. If Cam Rising's healthy, they're probably the best. Utah's probably the best team. I think overall, because of the dynamic ability they have on offense, I think Kansas State is probably the best team. I saw some crazy stat that it was on, I don't know if it was on Reddit or it was on Twitter, but it was pulled from somewhere else. That BYU is basically vampires. That like over the last X number of years, they're like 18-3 when it's dark out and like 17-19 when the sun's out.
Those guys are used to, never mind. Sometimes the analogies have to stay in your head, Dave.
Yeah. I mean, is Colorado the team we saw Saturday? Because if they are,
well,
you have the 2 best players in the league. So
you have the 2 best players in the league. They ran the ball, so now you can't just sit back and dare them to run.
The offensive line isn't a mess. The defense isn't a total disaster.
The run defense was awesome against UCF.
You have a first-round quarterback and a top 5 or 10 pick playing wide receiver and corner.
He's the best player in college football.
I agree.
He might be the second best player in college football.
Behind my guy, Ashton Genty.
Yeah. Dude, if he keeps it up, he's going to challenge some Barry Sanders records.
He's on pace to rush for almost 3,000 yards.
It's like 26. Well, he's on pace to rush for just under 2,600, and Barry Sanders' record is just over 2,600.
Yeah, he's at like just under 900 in 4 games.
Yeah. So...
and he's still averaging over 10 yards a carry.
Right.
And he's their whole offense.
And everybody knows it, and they just can't do anything about it.
He still does. It just doesn't matter. I love it so much.
Yeah, like if they actually have like a defense and an offensive line, you've got the two best players in the conference. I don't think there's anybody in the conference better than those two guys.
No. They got a
We'll
fun
see if
one.
they can keep it up.
They have a bye this week, and then they get next week. That's a good one that UC's done at 3:30, or is it 3:30? Because they got like a 9:15 game against Kansas State.
That's going to be a lot of fun
at home. That's going to be a fun one.
Yes. I also wonder how much, like, the only reason I'm still a little guarded on Colorado. UCF does this. Gus does this once a year.
He would be one of the most frustrating coaches to be a fan of, because they will pull the upset, and then they will also at the same time just give you a massive head scratcher. But these are the type of games where when the talent has, and he brings in the talent, whether it was Auburn, whether it's him at UCF, but when the talent is fairly even, or the other coach is like a real effing football coach, they'll drop those games.
I mean, they go after UCF plays Cincinnati. They have at Iowa State, BYU at home, Arizona at home, at Arizona State, at West Virginia, and then Utah at home. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, they're going to pull an upset in one of those 3 ranked games, because they always do.
Right.
But to look as bad as they looked against Colorado was shocking. Like, I expected Colorado, like, we talked about it. We looked at the number, like 15.5. Like, that make a whole lot of sense.
It's a huge line.
Yeah.
I think it's opened at like 12. It might have come down by game time, but I think it opened at like 12.5 and was like bet up to 15 almost immediately.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you basing that off of? They've played an FCS team, a team in their first year in Conference USA coming up from the FCS, and they needed a wild comeback to beat TCU. So, like, why were you saying they're 2 touchdown favorites against Colorado?
Well, I think it was because everybody looked at it and said Colorado's run defense stinks and UCF runs wild on people. And that was not the case. Deion had those boys, I'll give him credit. Deion had those boys ready to stop the run the other night.
Yeah, maybe the Bengals should rehire Robert Livingston to be their defensive coordinator.
No comment. So yeah, the league is super interesting. The middle, like, I don't think it makes any sense to even try to make sense of it, because every week you're going to be proven wrong.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Go with the home team, lay the points. Like,
I mean, if you're interested in playing games, I mean, I would just bet against Houston, regardless of what the spread is.
Willie's got a long way to go
until it burns you. I mean, offensively, they're a disaster.
Willie's got a long way to go.
So
you got to get quarterback. Like, it's just Cincinnati and Houston.
Coaching quarterback, man. College football. I mean, it's not like a secret or anything. But like,
no, of course not.
If you don't have the quarterback, it's tough to be competitive at this level.
I don't like this in the national sense, because I think it's too broad and there's not enough information to really be specific about it. But if you were looking at where there might be coaching changes at the end of this year with 7 conference games to go.
Yeah.
Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to, I mean, because they already did some staff changes. They've not been shy about saying, like, I mean, they printed shirts that say we pay players.
They did do that.
So you are following up your home loss, your crushing last-second defeat to Colorado, and then losing at home to BYU with a trip to Iowa State. So, and then you still have your schedule lightens up a little bit in the back end, but I feel like that's probably going to result in a change.
Did he make it? Does he make it to the back end?
I mean, that's one of those, like, do you get rid of him at the bye because you'd want to avoid the dead cat bounce and, like, the rallying around the coach and saving the season bull crap? Because they do have a bye after next week.
Yeah.
So I don't know one way or the other, but I mean the back half is the very end is at West Virginia, at Houston, and then Kansas at home, which are 3 games they could win. So yeah, maybe if you're wanting to avoid that, you make that move in a couple weeks.
Here's another interesting point on that, Dave. This is a 2-bye season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a bye in between TCU and West Virginia on the back end in November.
Yeah.
So maybe you give him until, TCU, because you've got at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State at home, TCU at home. I think if you come out of that,
I mean, if you lose the Tech and especially the TCU game at home, like, it doesn't matter if you let him stick around for the last 3 games. He's getting fired.
You're going to fire him, right?
Yeah, I mean, you lose to the Texas teams, you lose at home to TCU. He's getting fired.
Yeah. What does TCU do? I mean, they can't fire him, right? Like, he was just in the national championship game a little over a year ago.
I mean, they should.
I know, but that's got to be really tough for an athletic director, right? Like, the guy takes you to not like takes you to a great season, takes you to a national championship game,
right?
And you fire him 2 years later.
I feel like that's happened somewhat recently. Didn't Gus get fired?
Maybe.
Gene Chiswick did. He was the head coach at Auburn when they won the title with Cam, and then got fired 2 years later.
I mean, I think that's a little more like
Cam,
at least with that one,
Cam related.
Yeah, like you can say, like, look, he had a cheat code,
literally
that nobody in college football. Yeah, literally, he had a cheat code that nobody in college football could stop. And now that he doesn't have him, we've found out that he's bad.
Yeah,
like it wasn't like TCU had like dominant players.
No,
he just got lucky and won every coin flip, and then. I still have no clue how they beat Michigan. None.
I think he's got a pretty easy schedule though. So
yeah.
I think they're going to win some more games. And
they've got a great quarterback.
Oh, the UC game, if the weather's nice the end of the year, we're going to see maybe 100 throws.
At that, well, I still don't think Sat wants to throw it 100 times.
No, but I'm saying like
or 50 times. They're going to throw it.
Okay, maybe 80 to 90 throws.
yeah. Because TCU is going to throw it 45, right?
At least
LSU fired
probably more.
I guess LSU did fire Orgeron 2 years
that was
after.
More self-inflicted than most than on the field stuff. There's some stories that don't need to be told on this podcast. No point.
Go Tigers.
But some funny ones that I've heard.
Yes. So there is precedent, but there's nothing like glaring that says Neil Brown is another. Matt says Neil's gone if they don't make a bowl.
I think they'll make
probably.
They gotta make a bowl, don't they? I mean,
they love their quarterback, right?
Oh, I didn't realize
they have an easy schedule.
I didn't realize how rough their next 4 games are.
Yeah, that's what we talked about in the preseason. Remember, was if they don't start fast, they're in trouble because it gets rough for them quick.
Yeah, I mean, like if they don't win at Oklahoma State this week, then you're just Iowa State, Kansas State, at Arizona. That doesn't sound enjoyable.
No. And then, they lose 3 out of 4 in that stretch. The natives are going to be restless in the mountains.
Good thing they came back and won that Kansas game.
Yeah, because it would have been real ugly.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I don't think so.
No, because Willie's going to get time.
Unless Kyle Whittingham retires. I mean, that's been the rumor for the last couple of years, but
yeah. What about Gundy?
Nah, he's fine as long as he wants to be there.
You think maybe he retires?
They do this he does this all the time. When they're not supposed to be good, he has a great
5 in a row. Yeah.
And then when they're projected to have a good year, that's when they have the rough year. So
what's your take on Ollie Gordon?
I mean, maybe give him the ball, and then I could tell you more.
I mean, they did at the beginning of the year, and he still wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have not gotten to watch them really at all. So everything I consume on that is through like listening to podcasts and other stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I've heard some stuff that like if it's there, he's great, but there's now questions of like, what is he if there's not some like wide open gaping hole for him to run through? And the offensive line clearly
he was the exact opposite of that last year, wasn't he?
I think the offensive line last year is finding out. We're finding out that it was much, much better than it is this year.
Yeah, but I still remember him like breaking tackles and like just rumbling.
Yeah, but I just mean like if it's like he sees it because it's so crystal clear that it's there. And somebody might come in and try to tackle him, but like there's not a lot of, I don't know the best way to say it. Like the thing I was listening to was like not comparing him to Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry obviously can still like we saw Sunday night. I mean, the hole is there and he's still just gone. But there's not a lot of like nuance to Derrick Henry's game, and I'm feeling like that might be the case of where kind of Ollie Gordon is right now.
Yeah, I mean, their quarterback's not good.
You certainly don't. Well, they're throwing it a ton.
Yeah.
Which again makes me think that they don't have confidence in the offensive line to actually block for him.
Yeah. They got confidence in the offensive line to throw it 40 times.
Well, it's all really quick.
If you had to pick now, are you taking Kansas State to win it?
Yeah.
That was my preseason pick.
Yeah.
I still worry, like, if you can get them down a couple scores, can Avery Johnson throw them out of it?
Whose defense is getting the rest of the way is getting them down a couple scores?
Well, nobody thought BYU was going to get them down a couple scores, and then they scored 31
They got them
points
down a couple scores because they had like a fumble return for a touchdown with a 98-yard kick punt return where the dude tries to Willie Mays haze it, and somehow it bounces right back up to him. And like, yeah, Avery, if Avery Johnson and those backs are playing well, I don't see any teams that are like, it's gonna be tough to go shot for shot with them because they're gonna get stops.
Yeah,
like I don't know if their defense is like
great, but it's
great,
good.
but they'll get stops.
Yeah, Farmageddon's going to be fascinating.
Oh yeah,
that's my new favorite thing, Farmageddon.
Yeah.
just because it sounds cool, for one, and for two, they genuinely seem to not like each other.
Well, I mean, we get the BYU Utah game in November.
Yeah, the Holy War.
There's a lot of good ones still to come.
I guess I'm still going to ride with Kansas State because they were my preseason pick. I think they're just as likely as anybody. But, man, that Iowa State defense is still really freaking good.
Oh, yeah.
But their offense, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. All right, let's timestamp that. Brought to you by Turtles Brew, 6% ABV, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, bourbon-infused sweet tea. There's over 100 locations in and around Ohio, more than 50 in Greater Cincinnati. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations, and also keep an eye out for Wicked Hair, their new grain. Turtles Brew is bourbon-based. Wicked Hair is grain-based, and it's got a little more kick to it, as you can attest to, Dave, after trying a sip.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, so keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure. I know it's in a couple places. I'm not sure where the rollout is on that, but if you see it, grab it if you're looking for a good time. That's 8% ABV as opposed to 6% with Turtles Brew. Let's talk some overall college football, Dave, and the talk is back out there about the Super League. I don't know if you saw Greg Sankey's comments about that today. Let me.
I stopped paying attention to any. I didn't pay attention to any of it when I saw this first iteration of what they were going to name it, and it's disqualifying right from the start for me. It's one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. The student athlete, football league?
Something ridiculous.
The
Sankey said today,
football league or something. I know it was on something. In it.
Yeah, he was on something called the Triple Option Podcast. You ever heard of that? I've never heard of that. I don't know how they got Greg Sankey, but good for them. He said, I've studied it a little bit, and I come back to, I don't want to dumb down the Southeastern Conference to be a part of some Super League notion with 70 teams that some people speculate would happen. They want to be us, and that's on them to figure it out, not on me to bring myself back down to earth. Because if this happened, Greg, you wouldn't have a job. Because there wouldn't be conferences.
Right.
Like it would reset everything.
No, I mean,
the name is dumb.
The games are going on right now, so I pay so little attention to the idiots that are trying to ruin the sport even more than they've already ruined it.
Well, Greg Sankey is also trying to ruin the sport, Dave.
I know. He's an idiot. Just like all the rest of them.
This on the heels of what we know is coming next week, which is the superpowers.
Yes, we need more spots. We need more spots. We need to see, fraudulent Ole Miss who couldn't score more than 13 points against Kentucky. We need 9-3 Ole Miss, a guaranteed spot in the playoff.
Well, but you know what they're going to talk about, right? If they're not going to give us the guaranteed spots, we're going to play each other and we're going to take them.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to no one's in charge. Everyone is looking out for. I mean, just like this realignment stuff that has happened over the last week or so. I'm just like, okay, whatever. I mean, the Pac-12 is thinking about adding Tarleton State. Sure.
Was it the Mountain West that was talking to Toledo?
Yeah, Toledo and Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois and Toledo, yeah. In the Mountain West.
Yeah, I'm just like, sure, whatever.
Nothing screams Mountain West like Toledo, Ohio, Dave.
Well, I mean, that's why I was joking. I think with Jeff, we got our first glimpse of like the truly like what the hell are we doing 2 weeks ago when it was Stanford at Syracuse ACC Friday night game. I'm like, sure, because we need a couple extra $1 million, or we're afraid to play in the same league as Colorado State and Boise, all the states, Fresno, Boise, Colorado, whatever teams are now in the Pac-12. So, I mean, the sport, the on the field product is still awesome. I love it. They haven't totally killed it off yet. They're trying very hard. But it's a whole just bag of crap, essentially.
Right.
That,
I mean, how can you not get excited about that November 2nd game where Stanford travels to NC State?
Yeah. I mean,
and then the next week, or the next game, November 16th, they host Louisville.
Yeah. I mean,
what's Cal got?
Cal's got Miami this week. Game day.
Yeah, they got
in Cal.
Yeah.
I saw it's woke versus Coke.
They have a November 8th trip to Wake Forest, followed by hosting on November 16th Syracuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, then just throwing SMU and all this, throwing these teams that are going, Gonzaga's in the Pac-12 now, and
that one makes sense at least. Like, at least
sure.
give yourself an identity as a basketball league.
I mean, it's a basketball. It's not an identity as a basketball league. It's an identity as we have Gonzaga and San Diego State.
Yes, but I mean, at least nobody's going to talk about Pac-12 football anymore.
No.
At least with Gonzaga and San Diego State, they will at least discuss Pac-12 basketball.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that Aaron and I talked about last night, though. Like, until or unless the ACC implodes, I think we're at about the resting point for the time being.
Right.
Because nothing else. The Big Ten and the Big Ten and the SEC aren't taking anybody from this iteration of the Big 12.
Or I don't see how. I don't think they're that interested in taking anybody, period.
I would disagree there because I still think like North Carolina and Virginia
but they're not. But only if the others in the ACC like force it to be an option. Like, they're not trying to like break their grant of rights for them or offer them, safe harbor.
Yeah, it's more if you're available, give us a call. And until then, don't.
Yeah. It's now we're in the, is that guy hurt or is he transferring portion of the season? So
how did they not know that this was gonna, like, how did they not have the foresight to know that this was gonna be a thing? That's what I don't understand.
No, and then
when you set these redshirt rules for you get 4 games, and then
there's obviously tampering going on, but no one's going to say anything about it because they're going to be tampering with the guys that are also doing it that just aren't on their team.
Right.
So
it's so, I don't even know the right word for it. Like, annoying. Like, then just let's start having trades, right?
The thing is, like,
let's just start having trades.
All of this could be solved
with collective bargaining,
with a contract, but then you're not an amateur student athlete anymore.
Then you're an employee, and if you're an employee, then they have to treat you like an employee, and they have no intention of treating the help.
They do have to treat you like an employee, but I don't think, there's the opposite side of the spectrum on that. And I'm not sure the players want to take on. Okay, yeah, you're an employee, and you haven't been producing, so I'm cutting you.
Right, you're out.
We gave you X number of dollars when you transferred from school-wide to us, and you have not lived up to the contract, and you're cut. And in the contract, it said we will pay you on a game-by-game basis. And
now you're not getting. Now you've played 5
but
weeks.
you still have to go to school. Now you still have to go to school, though,
so that you could be eligible at the next place.
You could transfer. Right, exactly. Like, do they want that?
Yeah, because that's the thing now. It's
that?
like that. We have seen that with some kids, and it hasn't gotten heavily publicized, but I know of a couple instances where kids have stopped going to school when they decide mid-season to transfer, and then they get to the off season and they want to go somewhere else, and it's like, well, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. We can't admit you into our school.
Like quitting a job and then just like going to find a new job when you feel like
get a new job, right?
There's still some rules.
Let's just get to like the trade deadline in college football.
Could you imagine?
Like, I mean,
if
there's ever collective bargaining,
we'll just joke about it. Like, I mean, the season's their season's probably gone now, so I don't know how much it would matter to them. But like
Florida State, baby,
we'll just play a stupid game of like, how much money would Florida State give UC right now for Brendan Sorsby if you could just trade him?
Or how much money would UC give for Florida State's defensive tackle?
Yeah. Or like Michigan.
Or
Michigan Michigan, who has a good enough defense to probably win the national championship, but has no quarterback. Like, all right, Michigan, like, I want $50 million, and you can have Brendan Sorsby. How important is it for you to back up that national championship? Or we'll give you $20 million for Mason Graham and put him next to Dante Corleone.
Right, like Sorsby for Mason Graham and your 2 best freshman recruits from last year.
It'd be so ridiculous. There's just like mock drafters doing like free agent frenzy college football. Like, oh my God, it'd be so awful. So awful.
I mean, the other thing that's probably going to happen eventually, Dave?
No, what's that?
There's not going to be like a restriction on the number of years you can play college sports.
I mean, if you want, the one dude from Miami's in his 9th year.
I know. We're already seeing guys 6, 7 years of college football. And here's the thing. Like, if you don't have a shot at the NFL, but you're a good college football player, I'll stay in college football for 6, 7, 8. Like, I'll take a couple classes until I'm 28. If I'm getting $500,000 a year or $250,000 a year, it beats the hell out of going and selling insurance.
Oh yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, it's great.
I can't wait.
I keep saying I'm
2028.
I keep saying like it's gonna make me lose interest, but then I watch like non-Bengal NFL games, and I'm just like, this is so boring. Like obviously, like some of the teams are good, and there's been a few good games, but like the offense in the NFL is just like not outside of a few teams is non-existent.
Episode 575 of the BCJ podcast, Cincinnati at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
It's the bye week, so it's time for the trade deadline. The Bearcats looking a little thin at linebacker, perusing the teams that have kind of fallen off already. Who are the 0-4 power conference teams? Yeah. What do their linebackers look like?
Yeah,
The
like
Bearcats have traded their number 4 rated recruit in the 2028 class.
these two Toledo linebackers are really good. We'll give you like a home game. We'll come play at your place and give you $1 million for these two guys.
No, Dave, it's player transactions, man. I'm gonna need some recruits. Could you imagine being the recruit in that situation?
You're just like, what about school?
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah, you're going to Toledo.
Yeah, do my credits transfer?
You're gonna have to take your online classes here at the University of Cincinnati for the remainder of the semester.
God.
Oh, 5th-year senior, Samaj Jones leading the Bearcats onto the field. Oh man. Do we save basketball for next week, Dave?
Sure, I can do. I got my 6-pack.
Okay, yeah, let's do that then.
But yeah, I mean,
Dave's 6-pack.
We got no game to review next week. Then we'll obviously preview the UCF game and then talk a ton to West. Like, I feel like it's probably a good show.
All right then. Well then let's get to the 6-pack. Take it away.
All right, Missouri at Texas A&M, 12 p.m. ABC. I think Texas A&M is rounding into form, especially defensively. I think Missouri is a very shaky top 10 team. Offense does not seem to be clicking at the level that I think most people thought it would. So that's kind of an interesting one for that potential at-large SEC team for the playoff.
Yeah.
You know, A&M has that loss to Notre Dame, but if they, beat Missouri at home, there's a top 10 win. What are they, kind of in this back half of the year? We're going to go Iowa at Ohio State, 3:30 CBS. Iowa seems to have some semblance of an offense. I'm not sure it's going to matter, but for some reason they have traditionally given Ohio State a hard time. So, it's an interesting one to keep on a second screen if it's close, or in the quad box while you're watching the Bearcat, or no, while you're not watching the Bearcats because they're not playing.
I think we might head to Fifth Third Arena on Saturday, Dave.
What is there?
Volleyball against UCF.
Oh, all right. I will be possibly heading to a 5-year-old birthday party, so that's almost as much fun.
College volleyball is fun, dude.
I'm serious. Yeah, I know. The birthday party is something I'm not really looking forward to going to.
You can come to the volleyball game with us.
Rachel's not going to be around.
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to take the little one.
Yeah. So West Virginia at Oklahoma State, 4 p.m. ESPN2. Kind of already mentioned a little bit about that one. That was just interesting to me because Oklahoma State looked terrible last week at Kansas State. West Virginia coming off a bye after a sneaking out a win at home against Kansas. Just interested to see how both teams played in that game.
Yeah.
Clemson at Florida State, 7 p.m. ESPN. Not because Florida State's good, but I want to see what Clemson is. Was the Georgia game just a really bad night and they're actually pretty damn good? It doesn't set up like a real Miami Clemson type ACC game. I don't know if they play in the regular season or not, but potentially in the conference championship. Because they've looked, or at least the scores and the results have looked very, very good for them. So maybe it's just they have a Georgia problem, and it was the first game of the year. So, because I don't think Florida State's good, and they're going to their backup quarterback, which can't be much worse than DJ.
How about this, Dave?
You got
Here's
blown
what's
out
left
by
for Clemson.
SMU.
Here's what's left for Clemson. At Florida State, at Wake, Virginia at home, Louisville at home, at Virginia Tech, at Pitt, the Citadel at home, South Carolina at home.
maybe at Pitt. Other than that, I see a lot of big wins.
South Carolina's decent, aren't they? You know better than me. I'm not. I don't. I mean, I just know they beat the piss out of
but
Kentucky.
like at Clemson in that game, that rivalry game, like I don't think they're capable in that situation. I mean, could they win? Of course they could, but I like that slate there for Clemson.
Yeah,
to have a pretty good shot to win the ACC, potentially make the playoff if they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. UCF at Florida, 7:45 SEC Network. I think this is a weird spot for UCF.
I checked. They've only played Florida 3 times in their history.
Yeah.
They won one of them, and that was the most recent one in a bowl game.
Like I think everybody is. I mean, granted, Florida's win. I don't know. I don't think they played last week. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I mean, beat Mississippi State's breaks off, but again, they're pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I don't know. I'm kind of leery about this game for UCF. Like, I feel like if they hadn't gotten trucked by Colorado, like, maybe overconfident. So going into this game, so maybe not now. There seems to be some I'm not going to say internal stuff at UCF, but like you got the second leading receiver transferring, and I think it's because like the quarterback can't get him the ball.
Well, and he's their like special teams like ace, like returner, right?
Return guy.
Also,
yeah. So it's just a weird, everybody is so down on Florida, and not that this would change, not that this is going to change any of that if they win. And I don't even think it would change anything if they lost. I mean, I think Billy's done.
Regardless,
because next week they play Tennessee at Tennessee, so you probably better win this game. But it's just an interesting game to me to just kind of, since UC's playing UCF next week, and they're going out of conference, so interesting matchup. And then we'll throw in
the UCF thing. I put this on the board, and we've talked about this behind the scenes a lot. I think it's catching up to them. Like they in their talent acquisition department, they only care about stars, which is going to get you a good deal of talent. But they are also often shopping in the like refurbished defective bin, where the kid is talented, but there's a reason that he doesn't have, he's talented enough to play at Alabama, but he's not at Alabama. Why? Because Alabama didn't make that move.
Right.
And, UCF, and there's a lot more of these kids in Florida than there probably is anywhere else. And some of that is because if you go look, Florida generally has 100 4-star players.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like if there's 300 4-star players, like 90 of them are in Florida. So just by volume, there's going to be a lot of these guys that other schools aren't going to touch, and that UCF says we want to put it on the board that we've got 9 4-stars in our class. Like they play it like NCAA 25. Like we want to be in the top 20 in the rankings, and we don't care what it means to the program, because ultimately, and it's the Bob Huggins, like if we're being honest, like it's not like this is new. No. This has been done before, but they say we'll take the damaged goods, and some of them are going to work out. The defensive tackle, RJ Harvey, not saying those guys fit this specific mold that I'm talking about, but some of them are going to work out. Most of them we will shuffle through, and they will quit 3 weeks into the season, 4 weeks into the season, and go find somewhere else to play. That's just not a stable way to develop a program.
No, I think it's just harder to and they're going to keep doing it. They're doing a good job with the high school kids. Have plenty of talent there. I'm just, it's not. There's no comparisons. We have a lot to still strive for and a lot to prove.
Sure.
But like, I've just never been a big Gus guy. Even with the year that they went to the title game against Florida State, like there's too much volatility in this programs.
Right.
And
not even necessarily like,
I feel like
Paces
it's
are
just
really talented.
always wanting. It just leaves you always wanting more.
Right.
Whether it's
Always.
how he calls the game, whether it's we should be better than we are, whether it's how do we keep having these? It's almost like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. Like everybody talks about how he's never had like a non or a losing season. He also always drops a game where you're just like, how the F did you lose to that team? Every year.
Right.
It's like, you have no business losing to that team. How did you lose to that team?
With Gus, it's usually, how did that team blow you out? Like, how?
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, continue. Sorry.
Texas Tech at Arizona, 11 p.m. Fox. Really just on here because it's the Big 12 game of it, and it's the late game. Usually it's like a G5 Mountain West game or WAC game or something. So to get a decent, not even decent, like probably what's going to be a pretty good late game, will be fun to watch. If you haven't seen Tet McMillan, Arizona's awesome wide receiver against Texas Tech's defense, should be fun.
I'd say he might put up a 300-yard game, but we've already seen that this year.
It would be his second of the year.
that Texas Tech secondary, ooh, buddy. They had a rough night Saturday. But, all right. You got anything else you want to talk about? Sean Abev in town tonight. Tomorrow, got in town last night, here tonight, all day today, tonight, and through like tomorrow, late morning, I think. And then Davion Hannah, this is basketball. Sean Abev, Davion Hannah, both top 30 level 4-star wings. Davion Hannah gets here tomorrow evening. He will be here through Saturday. So we'll see what happens coming out of those. The Abev one is really interesting because the early money was on Auburn. See what I did there? But there's not a lot of people feel like they have a good read on Sean Abev's recruitment.
Really had to stretch for that one.
I did. So, stay tuned. I'm monitoring. Do I know how the visit is going? No. It is still ongoing.
Going great. They all go great.
Not all of them. There are some that don't go great. They usually go great. Anymore, though, Dave, you know what a not great visit is? Here's my number. Okay, thanks. Enjoy your dinner tonight, and we will put you on the plane tomorrow.
Yeah. When the market adjusts, give us a call.
Right. Hopefully you had a great time, and we will talk to you next spring.
When you don't get the money you were,
or you do get the money and it didn't go like you wanted it to go, and you're back in the market. But that's what's going on the basketball recruiting front. And anything new that pops up, we'll let you know from there. Aaron and I will have a nightcap tonight looking at the Big 12 this week. I know you hit on a couple of them, but there's more, and we didn't hear Aaron's thoughts. So that nightcap will be coming up this evening as well. I'm not sure about tomorrow. Tomorrow is normally 3 keys, and we don't have a game.
I think you should do like 3 keys to having an awesome weekend.
3 keys to the bye week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Friday. I'm gonna accomplish one of those. You can come over if you want, Dave. We're gonna have a fire, have some beverages. I know you don't consume anymore, but you can come hang out by a fire. We'll be here.
All right.
And anybody wants to come over? ABEV visiting Arkansas, maybe that has not. I know Cal has kicked the tires, but that nothing has come out of that yet, other than hey, we might be interested, probably depending on whether we get these 1 or 2 guys in front of you. So we will see. That's going to wrap it up. A crisp 100-minute BCJ podcast, Dave. We'll see you next week with Wes Miller. Be a little longer next week, I promise. The BCJ podcast brought to you by the Holy Grail and Homefield Apparel and Turtles Brew right here on BearcatJournal.com.